We just arrived at the Strasburg, Virginia Supercharger. We just arrived at the Staunton, Virginia Supercharger. Wydesville, Virginia. Knoxville, Tennessee. Nashville, Tennessee. Little Rock, Arkansas. Van Buren, Arkansas. Oklahoma City. Shamrock, Texas. Amarillo, Texas. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Gallup, New Mexico. Holbrook, Arizona Supercharger. Final charging stop is our home. Hey everyone, today is a pretty special day. We are about to go on a over 2,300 mile road trip in our Model Y, and we're trying to do it in about 4 days, which is kind of crazy. Now, if you can see here, this is my office that we're right about to move out of. Closet, you know, and just all this mess. Over the course of this road trip video, I'm gonna talk about a few different things like cargo, range, comfort, supercharging, Tesla specific features, and just my thoughts on the overall road trip. So really this is meant to document my experiences with this huge road trip. So if you are potentially planning on doing something similar, you might know what to expect. So we're trying to make use of this little under area back there. It's really, wide but kind of shallow. And so some loose clothing we think is gonna be the best use of that. We had 3 boxes here. So this, and this, and then we also have that tub. And we're gonna try to see how much of this stuff we can fit in the shallow compartment. We also, on top of that, just added an entirely full bin of laundry in with this stuff too. Kind of crazy. So after all the things that we packed, this is still the space that we're working with. So I was able to put 2 pretty big pairs of boots under here, as well as some sneakers. And that's because the Model Y seats are on seat risers. 4 or 5 pairs of shoes under this one, another 4 or 5 pairs under this one, then a whole bunch of gear, and we still have more space right here. So this is gonna be great. Back realizing we have even more space. So I've got this monitor that I haven't reviewed yet, and of course, where would I be without my mechanical gaming keyboards? After a very, very busy day of packing, we were able to fit almost everything we wanted from that apartment into the car. We knew coming into it that there were probably going to be some things that we'd have to ditch last minute, but ultimately we were able to get 98% of what we wanted into this car, and I think that's pretty crazy. As you can probably tell, rearward visibility is going to be a big issue with this drive, and I have a section later on all just about that and the things that I use to mitigate that issue and get around it. I mean, the Model Y already doesn't have that great of rearward visibility to begin with, but this just was much worse. Alrighty. So we know we're heading the Wydesville direction, so I'm just gonna go ahead and hit that. And then, lots of superchargers. But we are gonna have to make one stop and then another to get there. So we're finally on the road. It was a long day of packing, particularly for the camera person. We've got about an hour and 20 minutes until our first supercharger stop. The car is super packed. I mean, probably like hundreds of pounds of just stuff, as you can see in the B-roll from before. So I'm not actually completely sure how that's gonna impact our range. So it's saying that we're gonna get there with about 11% battery left, and I hope that it knows what it's talking about because, it could be cutting it close. I'm actually gonna stop at a closer supercharger than initially expected for 2 reasons. 1, so we can just make sure we have enough battery to get to our next stop, and then 2, just to also try to wait out the storm, because if you can see up there, it looks like it's getting a bit more sunny.
No longer raining.
Not raining.
Very scenic Tesla charger.
I was glad that we decided to go with an earlier supercharger. Just the rain was actually impacting our efficiency in driving, and I just wanted to make sure that we got to where we needed to be at the end of the night.
9 a.m. and we're about to start day 2 of driving. So one thing about having all of this is that my rear visibility is actually 0. If this is what it looks like to typically drive, car, and you glance up at your, oh my, there's really nothing you can see through this.
So what I did to remedy this is get these Sumer Performance side mirrors, and they're convex mirrors that give you a way greater field of view than the OEM or the stock mirrors that come with the Model Y. The Model Y already had kind of poor rearward visibility, but to just not have it at all would make driving really tough without these mirrors. Because of how convex they are, I can see 1 or 2 lanes to my left, as well as see cars behind me. And the same thing goes for this mirror, where if I just do a little bit of a peek, I can see the body, I can see behind me, and I can also see the lanes to my right. This almost completely reduces blind spots on both my right and left sides, and also still gives me some rear visibility where I otherwise would have that. As we headed into our first full 12-hour day of driving, I was really excited to see how Autopilot would help me on these really long stretches of driving.
So truck, car. Get out of Autopilot, pass it on the left. There seems to be a lot of, like, you see how it's just like kind of wobbling around, jumping all over? I've noticed that it's especially bad with trucks. So it's just like shifting a bit, yeah, that jumping. That always kind of just catches me off guard. Like, I typically trust Autopilot a decent amount just to keep me in the lane and, you know, be somewhat aware of the traffic around me, but when you see that, it's kind of weird. I know that the data visualization, or the visualization of full self-driving, is a little bit different than the actual like raw data that the camera system is actually using to make decisions, but I wish they would smooth that out a little bit. Aside from jumpy visualizations of trucks, Autopilot did make this drive, I think, possible, to be honest. I don't know if I physically would have been able to keep driving for 3 days in a row, around 10 or 12 hours each day, without some sort of significant driver assistance features. One other thing that I did notice, particularly with lane departure avoidance, and I wasn't able to capture this on video just due to safety and driving and whatnot, but along my drive there were a decent amount of construction zones, and so a lot of traffic cones, and sometimes the traffic cones would push you a little past the, you know, painted lines. So you'd be driving, you know, maybe a quarter of your vehicle is a bit over the shoulder line, or maybe over, you know, a center line that the other side of the road is cut off. And during those times, the car, you know, I would disengage Autopilot for them because it was not very confident. But in those scenarios, the lane departure avoidance would get really mad at me, right? Because it thinks that I'm just like, you know, slightly over the line, I'm making a mistake, but no, I need to be there out of safety because I'm avoiding these traffic cones or I'm avoiding construction. And by the time I get out of those construction zones, the vehicle would often just say, you know, driver assist features are temporarily disabled. I think because it thought I was just ignoring all of its warnings, but I was doing what was safe. This is probably our riskiest leg of the drive. So we're going to be driving about 193 miles. And it's saying that we'll get there with 14%. So this percentage has actually been pretty good so far, only off by like maybe 3% every once in a while. But yeah, so we're charging to pretty close to full, and then we'll be on our way. About 15 minutes into this drive, the expectation of range by the time we got to our destination had actually changed to around 24%. So I don't know why it was so conservative with what it showed us while we were charging, but we made there with plenty of range left.
Are you enjoying the car ride?
Yeah, are you?
My back hurts.
Yeah.
One other thing, we were traveling with pets, so doing a long road trip like this with pets can be pretty stressful just in terms of having to go and stop and, you know, use the bathroom and leaving your pets in the car. With a typical, you know, combustion engine car, you can't just run the air conditioning, but because this has dog mode, we really didn't have to worry about it a whole lot. We just got to the Santa Rosa Supercharger. Now this one's actually a little bit different in that there's 6 stalls. I'm in one of them, but this was the only stall available because of lots of trucks on that side, and then this other car on this side. None of them are electric vehicles. This would be pretty frightening, to be honest, because I would have no other place to charge. We got here with about 15% battery, and if all of these trucks were blocking, say, every single one of the chargers, this once again was the only one left, we're not like 15% wouldn't get us to another supercharger. So I'm actually, you know, I don't know what we would do.
So we are about to start our last day of driving. It's gonna be, I don't know, what, like 9 hours of driving, plus charging and other stops. But
I think it's 8 hours of driving.
8 hours of driving,
Yeah.
maybe 9.5 hours total.
The rafts are loaded.
That's loaded.
They got their puffs.
We'll recap some of our experiences throughout the day. Look at that charging rate. Look at it. That's crazy.
I think Dylan's a little confused and went to a gas station. Not quite sure why he did that. I told him that he drives an electric vehicle. He seemed to not listen and insisted on coming to the gas station.
So we're the last supercharger stop that we're going to be on for this trip. We've traveled around 2,200 miles as of now. We'll hit over 2,400 miles by the time we get to where we're headed. So I thought this might be a good time to just go over some, I don't know, general ideas, thoughts, feelings, charging, comfort, all those things that I said in the beginning of the video that I wanted to cover. So as far as cargo and capacity, I mean, we were able to fit a ridiculous amount of stuff in this. This is pretty much everything that we own.
Like small boxes of books
Yeah.
and 2 duffel bags.
That's what we shipped. So some like books and clothes, but other than that, I mean, you can see this massive bag of clothing that's been obstructing my rear view this entire drive. That's been there. The frunk has been super helpful. What we do is we keep our like nightly stuff in the frunk. So anything that's easy access, when we get to the hotels, we would just hop open the frunk, get our backpack and just go into the hotel. And so we didn't have to worry about trying to dig stuff out of this huge pile in the back. In terms of cargo space, I think it's an exceptionally capable vehicle for this size. You are going to be constrained just by the general shape and size of the vehicle, but as far as other cars in this similar size, I'd be surprised if they can get close, honestly, to the amount of cargo that you can store in this car. As far as charging, I thought we spent a lot less time than I initially expected that we would on charging. Really, the brakes were well timed out. I mean, we would drive for about 150 to 240 miles in between each charge. That was anywhere from an hour 30 minutes to like over 3 hours, and honestly by like the 3 hour and 30 minute mark, I am just trying to get out of the car at that point. So the supercharging is very welcome. We spent anywhere from 15 minutes to 45 minutes at chargers. There were some stretches that we knew we were going to need a really full, battery, so we just did the extra time to charge. Ended up spending around 45 minutes there to get the battery close to 100, so we just wouldn't have any worries going on to our next leg. Yeah, we did one charge that was just 5 minutes to get to the next stop for like an hour drive.
Really nice to walk around and stretch.
Yeah, definitely good to do those things. In terms of price, each charger would vary, but I'd say our average cost at a supercharger was around $10. And so that's probably the equivalent of filling up, I don't know, a half a tank of gas on a similar car or a similar sized car, but I think it would average out to around $10 for 200 miles of distance. And compared to a gas car, I think that's significantly cheaper. Wasn't like crazy inexpensive, but significantly cheaper. I honestly think that after 2.5 to 3 hours in any car, I start to get kind of fidgety. I work in a home office with not the best, ergonomics, so I already kind of have back aches and back issues. My primary complaint with the long-term comfort, so, an hour drive is fine, but once you're heading into 3 hours of driving or doing like 10-hour days, I mean, we did this like about 40 hours of driving, 35 to 40 hours of driving in 3.5 days. And so that's gonna take a toll on your body. Once again, the stretching was nice and it was good to just get out, but my 2 biggest complaints about the comfort of the seats is my tailbone. I still do feel a bit of tailbone pressure, especially when I'm sitting back in it and driving for an extended period of time. And then also the neck position. I know in one of the shots, we have this pillow. I did occasionally put this pillow right in the back of my neck just to give it a little bit more support, but really this sort of angle that this pushes you in, if you're like really going at, you're kind of craning your neck a little bit, and normally that's not a big deal, but 30 hours of driving in 3 days, that did start to get a little strenuous on the neck and upper back. All right, let's go hit the road and get to our destination. Wrap up this road trip.
Look at the cactus.
And the final charging stop is our home. So we got to our destination.
If you're curious, here's what the trip efficiency looked like. I forgot to start this until about 100 miles into the drive, so it's missing a little bit of data, but should be pretty representative. So yeah, that was the road trip. I mean, we've been here now for about a month and a half, so it was actually nice to just go back and look at all this stuff, and going back and reflecting on the trip itself. I mean, the Tesla was just amazing throughout it. The cargo was awesome, the charging was awesome, the autopilot was also awesome. You know, there were some minor quirks and stuff, but yeah, it was great. And a huge shout out to Eddie from Sumer Performance. He sent out those mirrors for me to check out and test for this road trip and whatnot, and they really made a huge difference. And I will just praise that product till the end of time, especially for the Model Y with the rear visibility that it does have from the factory. If you're still watching this video for whatever reason, you know, just throw in the comments what your thoughts on. If you have any questions, I'll always be around for answering those in the comments. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again real soon.